Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk. Rabbi Chaim Richman here in Jerusalem together with Yitzchak Reuven. Today, the 12th day of the month of Tevet, 5777. It's January the 10th, 2017. And this Shabbat, Parshat Vayechi, the ultimate, final, concluding Torah portion of the book of Breshit, Genesis. I got to tell you that Yitzchak Reuven is not feeling that well, and it's with great dedication and self-sacrifice that he's sitting here today, not feeling that well and not really able to speak so much because he has a nasty whatever it is that he has, and so we'll all have mercy on him and not expect him to say so much, which of course is great because I always interrupt him anyway, but now he's off the hook in case he really has something to say. Prove that you're here with me, Yitzchak. Okay. So, Parshat Vayechi comes on the heels this year of the 3 days of Tevet, the 3 fast days, most specifically the 10th day of Tevet, the communal fast day that we just observed this past Sunday, which of course is the day of the commemoration of the siege that began against Jerusalem. And as we come now to Parshat Vayechi, there's a lot going on. We feel the pathos, the tension, the angst of the fact that we know that this generation is about to conclude. Yosef, his brothers, Yaakov, that whole generation, things are going to change now very, very drastically as we enter into the book of Exodus, and the Jewish people are going to find themselves enslaved by the man, by the new Pharaoh who didn't know about Yosef, how he was a hero, how he had saved their entire nation. So one of the most famous things about this Torah portion of Vayechi, one of the most powerful, iconographic scenes from this parsha that has tremendous ramifications, is the very beginning of chapter 49, the second chapter of the Torah portion, where Yaakov Avinu, the Patriarch Jacob, is basically on his deathbed, and he says as follows. This is the first verse of chapter 49. It says, "Then Jacob called for his sons and said, 'Assemble yourselves, and I will tell you what will befall you in the end of days. Gather yourselves and listen, O sons of Jacob, and listen to Israel your father.'" And according to tradition, just as he said quite emphatically and quite straightforwardly in this verse, he's going to tell them what will befall them in the end of days. Yaakov was going to reveal to his children everything that was going to happen in the succession of all the generations until the final redemption, until the days of the Messiah. He was going to give them a head start. He's going to give them some crib notes. He's going to give them some sort of art scroll edition to history where they were going to have some important intelligence, important prescient information about everything. And then, if you continue reading, one of the very, very famous and often discussed point of this Torah portion, and then if you continue reading, he gives his blessings to all the children. And of course, Reuven and Shimon, the blessing was more a comment on them. How he felt about what they had done with Chaim, etc. The point is, though, this is his parting words to all.
Shimon and Levi.
Sorry?
Shimon and Levi.
Right, and that was about Shimon and Levi. But he goes through all the children, right, and he blesses them. And indeed, when it comes to Judah, there is a tiny glimpse at the Messianic era, because he talks about how the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a scholar from among his descendants until Shiloh arrives, and his will be an assemblage of nations. And in every one of the blessings, there's all sorts of things that are couched and that are alluded to. But essentially, the point is, it's a very famous idea that he did not do what he said he was going to do. He gets them all together. He says, "Assemble and gather yourselves, and I'm going to tell you everything that's going to happen to you." And then he doesn't do that. Instead, he gives them these blessings, albeit, the fact that they might have some allusions to messianic times or developments. It's not what he said he was going to do. So why is that? So famously about this Torah portion, this is the only Torah portion that there has no space in the scroll of the Torah that is written whatsoever between this and the previous Torah portion. Usually there's a space consisting of a certain amount of letters, sometimes more and sometimes less, sometimes 9 letters in this worth of empty space. But in this case, there's no space whatsoever, and it's called satum. It's called closed. And the idea being that, as our sages discuss, that it was closed because two reasons. The second reason being because the eyes of the children of Israel were about to be dimmed, as it were, because they were about to go into slavery. So their eyes were like closed. But the first reason, again, famously according to this line that I'm pursuing right now, is that Yaakov had something to give them. He saw something. He saw this whole prophetic landscape open up before him, and he was going to give them over these details. And then, boom, it was taken away from him. The Shekhinah, as it were, that was inspiring him, the divine presence, the presence of prophecy, departed from him, and he lost it. And so instead he went and he started talking about something else. He started giving them these individual blessings, but that wasn't his original intention. His original intention was to tell them everything. And why did that happen? And this, again, alluded to by the very way the Torah is written traditionally in the scroll. So the major consensus of opinion, the classic interpretation here is that it was taken away from him because it wasn't time, because it wasn't God's will that he should divulge this information, and God didn't want them to have this head start. And he was actually afraid that maybe it was because of one of his children, or one or more, because of their actions. Maybe they didn't merit it. Maybe they weren't deemed worthy of it. And then this is the whole story of the origin of the Shema Yisrael prayer, that they actually recited out loud. Shema Yisrael, listen Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem who is our God, Hashem Echad is one God, that we believe in Hashem just as the way that you do, and that's not the reason. But that's another story. This vision was taken away from Yaakov, that's the point. And I'm thinking about this, right? What does this really mean exactly? And I wanted to suggest something. I wanted to suggest something in a whole new way of meaning. Because, again, traditionally, Yaakov lost the vision. But what happens if maybe, I'm just entertaining this idea for a moment, maybe he just didn't want to say what he saw, and that's why he didn't go give it. Maybe he saw things that were so devastating that he didn't want to share them. Or alternatively, maybe Hashem had mercy on him and wouldn't let him give over, right? What do I mean? Yitzchak is looking at me with a furtive kind of look. What happens if Yaakov did not want to show his children, that 4 beautiful Jewish children, Lieutenant Yael Yekutiel, 20, Lieutenant Shir Hajaj, 22, Second Lieutenant Erez Orbach, 20, and Second Lieutenant Shiritzor, 20, would be murdered on the 10th day of Tevet, 5777, the day of the siege against Jerusalem? What happens if Yaakov did not want to reveal to his children what we just lived through 2 days ago? Maybe he couldn't find a way of telling his children that 3 girls and a boy would be murdered and 17 wounded when a so-called Palestinian terrorist would ram a truck into them as they stood on the popular Promenade in Jerusalem overlooking the Temple Mount. Maybe it was unbearable for him to tell them that so-called Palestinians would be giving out candy once again in the streets to passing motorists to celebrate the murder of these Jews. Maybe Yaakov lost it when he realized that this attack was a direct result of the very public trial of an IDF soldier who was sentenced to manslaughter for killing a terrorist, something that shows, of course, how insane this country's courts are, which obviously strengthened the will of every terrorist. And maybe he lost it when he saw that the soldiers present would be hesitant to open fire until finally an officer did liquidate the terrorists for fear of prosecution, right? By the way, the terrorist has been identified as a recently released prisoner from a eastern Jerusalem neighborhood called Jabal Mukaber, which actually borders the neighborhood of Talpiot. So all I'm trying to say is when we learn the Torah, when we study the Torah, we study according to our traditional interpretations, we study the words of our sages, but you know what? Plug it into what's going on now. If you were Yaakov, and you were the forefather of the Jewish nation, and you were looking into the future and gazing in, and you came to some things that had absolutely no explanation and that you could not bear to divulge, would you divulge it? So, you know what? We're dealing with Arab terrorism, which is a lot more accurate than describing it as Palestinian terrorism. And the fact is, Arabs try to kill Jews because they believe that their efforts will cause Israel to give away her land, which fits in with something that we've been talking about for many weeks now, the fact that Israel expresses such ambivalence over her own lands. So what do you expect that we have when we haven't declared sovereignty over all of our own lands? And the other canard, is that how you pronounce that word, canard, Yitzchak? Canard, that is often repeated, is that Arab terrorism, Islamic/Arab terrorism, is born of despair. And the world loves to say that, you know, that they have such reason to despair because they have it so bad. The truth is, what it's born of is hope that they will be able to get their way, the more Jews that they kill. This is certainly encouraged by the United Nations stand on Jerusalem and on Israel. It's certainly encouraged by Obama and by John Kerry. So here's the deal. The deal is that when we talk about the siege against Jerusalem, when we talk about the destruction of the Holy Temple, we're not talking about a building that disappeared thousands of years ago. We're talking about something else altogether. And in my mind, this is what Asara B'Tevet is all about for all those that fasted, not knowing why they fasted, or who didn't fast because they say, what the heck, you know, so what are we missing without the Holy Temple? This is exactly what we're missing. And yeah, I want you to know that the enemy that besieges Jerusalem doesn't just besiege the city. He besieges the nation, but he besieges the nation by besieging every single one of us inside of our heads. And by playing with our heads on all these things. And this is the story. And so, you know, when I'm learning this week's Torah portion about Yaakov and about the short stop that he suddenly made and decided to withheld this information, whether it was his decision or Hashem's decision, to my mind, you know what? Looking into the future, this is what's going on here now. And this brings us to meditate a little bit on the fact that this happened on the 10th day of Tevet. Because again, when you think about the destruction of the Holy Temple, which of course is something that we talk about a great deal, this is Temple Talk, and this is our life's work, and we try to teach for so many years through so many different medium about the importance of the Holy Temple. So look at like Yom Kippur, right? Yom Kippur is a fast day. And on that day we fast in order to get in touch with our inner self, and in order to, according to the biblical mandate, to afflict ourselves so that we'll be on a more sensitive level to deal with our own inadequacies and repent. But the fact is Yom Kippur only comes once a year. But the destruction of the Holy Temple is reflected in 4 fasts all throughout the year. So I'm saying a person who was born in these generations, it's like this is all so far from us, you know, like, well, okay, but we're living in the state of Israel in a free democratic society. What exactly is the big deal about a building that was destroyed 2,000 years ago? And not only that, but the 10th day of Tevet is only the beginning. It's only the beginning of the siege. So, what is the problem exactly? My life is not in danger. But the fact is, our lives are very, very much in danger, and the proof of it is what's going on all around us at all times, because we have no idea what it is that we lost. And that's the main thing. When we talk about the Holy Temple, we try to we try to express what it is that we did lose, what it is that we are talking about. It's hard to cry for something that you don't know at all, that you don't recognize at all. But again, we're not talking about a building of stones, or we're not talking about a building that burnt. We're talking about a different world. We're talking about a world. Picture it, it's like the world got a heart attack, or worse, like what do you call it, a stroke. The world physically became debilitated when the temple was lost and the soul of the world completely departed. And that's why it's so hard for a person listening to this broadcast maybe to even commiserate or think about what it means for the people of Israel to lose, for children like this. It's very, very hard to shed a tear for someone that you don't know and to understand all of this. But the point is, the reason that we are so out of tune and out of touch with everything in this world is because the pipeline that connects heaven and earth, which is the Holy Temple, is missing from our lives. And that is what the 10th day of Tevet is really all about. The fact that we are living in a different world. It's not the world that we were intended to be living in. And the way that we relate to God and our Creator, our Father, and the way that we relate to each other and as friends and as societies is not on the level that it was intended to be. This is not the world as it was supposed to be. And the great loss is our own, that we're missing so much and we don't even realize, we don't even connect the dots, we don't even understand. And I think that's one of the most powerful messages of a tragedy like this taking place on the 10th day of Tevet, which is it's considered by some people to be like a minor fast, because it's like, after all, it's not Tisha B'Av, it's not Yom Kippur, and when it comes to the days of the temple, so it's the day that the siege began. But you see, that's what a siege is. It's like you are basically being held back, held prisoner. There are vast armies that are arrayed against you. And nothing's changed on that level, whether it's internationally, the way Israel is isolated and treated. I'm saying all this a few days before the conference is supposed to take place in France, right? There's a peace conference. It's only days away on January 15th. And it's going to be attended by dozens of countries, and it's expected that these countries are going to call to pressure Israel and the Palestinians to accept a two-state solution, demanding Israel, concede vital areas of both Eastern Jerusalem and land in Judea and Samaria, which of course is Israel's heartland. And if that's not directly related to the fast of the 10th of Tevet and the siege against Jerusalem, then what is, So not only is the siege internationally against Jerusalem and against the Jewish people, but I say more than that. I say the siege is against every single one of us. And some of it is external and some of it is internal. And it takes something like this to show us what it is that we're missing, because when you try and comprehend what's going on, and it's hard for you to feel, it's hard for you to cry, and it's hard for you to understand what this is all about. That's because we don't have the Holy Temple, which is the thing that connects all of us to each other. And so I think it's very significant that this happened on the fast of the 10th of Tevet, which is the day that the siege against Jerusalem began. And from there, the entire process that led to the destruction continued. And that's exactly where we are in time and space right now. And it's not too late. It's not too late. We don't have to give up, and we certainly don't have to concede. And I think that this also dovetails with the Torah portions that we're about to read, because, after all, the Torah is a living Torah, and it's about us. So when we read now that the children of Israel are about to descend into the darkness of Egyptian slavery, I think the idea is that we all have to, that we're all basically dealing with the theme of slavery, of who is our master, of who are we serving, and all of the things that we go through collectively as a nation, we go through individually. Like, for example, I was teaching a class last week about Tevet, about the month of Tevet. That according to the mystic tradition, one of the major rectifications of the month of Tevet is to work on the attribute of anger, which of course has a lot to do with the siege against Jerusalem. And the fact is that when a person gets angry, they're really angry at themselves, and they really are compared to idolaters when they become angry. And the fact is, as we descend now into the book of Exodus, and soon we will be, God willing, ascending from slavery, we're going to be confronted with issues now, issues of who are we serving? Who is our master? Is it ourselves? Is it our own ego? Who are we really angry at when we're angry? Anyway, just some musings, because Yitzchak Reuven is very hoarse and it's hard for him to talk. So I just thought I'd share with you these feelings about this terrible murder that just took place. And of course the UN condemned it, because the UN says that nothing is, how do they put it? Nothing can justify, this kind of thing. But of course, it was an act of resistance. People say, like the journalist that was fired for saying that, and that's basically the position of the UN. And furthermore, again, this is a chutzpah for the UN to come and condemn it, because it is a direct result of the UN's position on Israel that this kind of thing can happen in the first place. So I think that Yaakov saw all of this and he said, whoa, days are coming. Days are coming, and I don't know what to say about those days. It's going to take a lot of inner resources to be able to deal with those days. There's the music. Yitzchak Reuven hasn't said a single word because he's not feeling that well. Maybe he'll grace us with his inimitable insights as we come back to the second half of Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. This is Yitzchak Reuven here in the studio with Rabbi Chaim Richman here in Jerusalem. Today is the 12th day of the month of Tevet, 5777, 10th of January 2017. This coming Shabbat's parasha is Vayechi, which is the last and concluding parasha of the book of Genesis. And it means literally, and he lived. Yaakov, our father, lived in Egypt for 17 years. That's how it begins. And but it also could be understood, that word could be understood as, and he will live. And that itself may be the hidden prophecy in the parsha that the rabbi was talking about before, the fact that Yaakov gathers his children around to reveal to them the end of days. And then he proceeds to bless them, but does not actually reveal the end of days. And Rabbi, with your permission, I'd like to share some thoughts that I had while hearing you speak earlier in the show about these issues. First of all, yes, I think it is somewhat prophetic that the book of Genesis ends with the parasha Vayechi that's about life, because we'll learn soon enough that there's life after enslavement of Egypt. And we'll learn also soon enough that Israel lives on. And we've had many oppressors and many who have tried to feed us all sorts of two-state solutions and no-state solutions and dispersion solutions and exile solutions and all sorts of solutions.
And final solutions.
Final solutions. But we still live. Israel still lives. And another glimpse, I think, of the end of days that is revealed is in the very fact that Yaakov gathers his children around him, that they're all there together, united, and that truly is a vision of the end of days, that all the children of Israel are once again united here in the land. And that brings up a very painful subject, which goes back to the issue of Elor Azariah, the soldier who was just found guilty by a military court of manslaughter because he killed a terrorist who was on the ground after he had attempted to stab a soldier. And the issue of who is Elor Azariah has been an issue in the Israeli public for some months now because the cry has come out that he's our children. He's one of our children. Just like all IDF soldiers are our children. We send our children. Which has
always been an accurate description of how people feel about the IDF, because it is a people's army, and because every soldier is all of our children, and also our neighbor's child, literally, so that what happens to one soldier affects profoundly everyone, because it could be any of our children, but it really is all of our children.
Every child at the age of 18 receives an invitation to go to the draft board, and they're children fresh out of high school, boys and girls, and we put upon their shoulders the greatest responsibility that we could possibly put upon their shoulders, which is to defend this country from our enemies, and they do it with tremendous integrity, with tremendous misirut nefesh. How would you translate that?
Self-sacrifice.
Self-sacrifice, and of course, many pay the ultimate price, make the ultimate sacrifice for their nation, and so. And any one of our children who does serve in the army could find themselves in a situation that Elor found himself in, and could have responded the way he did. And it doesn't make them any less our children, and it doesn't make them criminals or performers of perpetrators of manslaughter or anything else. It was a battlefield situation, and he reacted the way he reacted. And the idea that the IDF soldiers are the children of all of us is what keeps this country together. It's what it's why we mourn together on Remembrance Day, the day before Independence Day here in Israel. It's why we worry when a single soldier is in captivity. It's why people pray when a single soldier has been injured. We pray for their recovery. It's part of the ethos of this country. It's part of what makes us a nation, and it's part of that prophecy that came from Parshat Vayechi. We are the children of Israel, and we all are one.
And certainly we all would agree that the soldiers need to be able to feel that they have, that the army, I won't say the government, the army has its back, that every soldier has basic rights, and because of the fact that they find themselves in the situation, and the defense of every single citizen is on their shoulders, they have to be able to feel that they're empowered. And this, of course, goes hand in hand with the fact that the fighting ethic of the IDF is the highest in the world, and it always has been. And it's almost impossible to describe. I mean, when we talked about the war in Gaza, and the great lengths that the army went to warn this, the people of Gaza before any strike even. But of course, Hamas missiles were being fired from schools and hospitals and in the midst of deep population centers, because they very well know that they can use human shields because the IDF has such a strong moral code. But that moral code, I mean, it has to be within the definition and the understanding of what Torah teaches us regarding our lives in the land of Israel and regarding our responsibility to each other. And so when the secular establishment bends over backwards to show that they are so humanistic, the whole ethic of the IDF basically goes down the drain, and every soldier is abandoned.
I wouldn't even generalize to say the secular establishment. I would say the left, the very left.
Well, which is the dominating factor?
Left. Well, it is the dominating factor because it is the most militant, and they have been able to access certain halls of power here in Israel, in which they can exercise their twisted agenda. But again, either they're all our children, the IDF soldiers, or they're not. And our children come first. If they don't come first for us, then we have no business sending them out there to defend us. And so the lives of our children, our soldiers, must always take precedent over the lives of the enemy. That's what war is about.
That's not what happened here, though. That's not what happened in the case of the soldier.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that the verdict that was pronounced.
Right. No, I agree. The verdict, I think, was a twisted verdict, and whether or not this soldier, whether he strayed from the rules, whether he acted correctly or incorrectly, that is not the issue. He needs to be regarded as one of our soldiers and one of our children, and treated as such. Now, a few years back, the cry was for Gilad Shalit, who was held captive by Hamas for 3 years in Gaza. The cry was, he's the child of all of us. We have to get him out, whatever it takes. And what did it take? It took the release of thousands of terrorists with blood on their hands who went on to murder more people after they were released. But of course, the rallying cry was, Gilad's this child of all of us. And you know what? He erred in his role as a soldier even more grievously than El-Or did, because of his error, he allowed himself to be captured. And because of his error, many people paid the price for his release, and people were murdered. El-Or killed a terrorist who attempted to kill a soldier just moments before El-Or killed him. What do you call it?
This rush to self-flagellate.
Right. This window. What do you call it? They say chalon revacha. It was a trial for the sake of showing the world.
Window dressing.
The sake of showing the world how good we are, how liberal we are, how we are going to toe the line of the Western, of the decadency of the West right now. That even our enemies' lives must come before our own children. Chas v'chalila. It's a disgusting trend that's
and you can say even
eating
more.
Up the West right now.
You can say that it also is the agenda of certain powers that be in the hierarchy, unfortunately, of the military and the government that identify more with the globalist agenda, and that are basically trying to quash and quell the fires of nationalism. In other words, it's like a way of defaming and delegitimizing the idea from within, right? And it's almost like that was the goal of the military court, to don't be so keen on being a good soldier or whatever. Right. The point is, like I say, we're descending now into the darkness of Egypt, as the Torah portions will head now into Parashat Shemot next week, into the book of Exodus. And that means that during this time, which, by the way, Tevet is darker and colder than Kislev. I mean, Kislev began, Hanukkah began in Kislev, and Kislev is a time of revealing this hidden light. And Tevet is a difficult time, and we're going to be studying the Torah portions about slavery, and it's the slavery to the new Pharaoh, and in my mind, that is parallel to the slavery and the shackles and fetters into which we are placed by the world powers. But again, there's slavery for the nation, and there's slavery for every individual. And these are issues that we all have to confront. Basically, who is it that we are serving, like the song says? And there's there's these agendas that we're serving. There's these world powers and their agendas, and how that translates on a simple level for every single person, sometimes that we don't even realize. Like I said, the French Peace Conference, right, a few days away, and the tremendous pressure that Israel is facing, and a great deal of that is our own responsibility for bringing upon ourselves, because we are not coherent about our rights in this land. I saw something, Yitzchak. Can I see that again? Thank you. I saw a email report from this fellow Eli Hertz. He has something called Myths and Facts. Very important information. I just want to read something here about that he sent out, which is very apropos to this recent Security Council resolution and everything that we're discussing today, and the upcoming conference in France. He writes this. He says, almost 100 years ago, Jews were busy building a country in Judea and Samaria, which of course is the West Bank. This all came before John Kerry, Barack Hussein Obama, Samantha Power, the PLO, and Mahmoud Abbas. And then he goes, Eli Hertz, in Myths and Facts, and he gives an excerpt from what's called the Report of the High Commissioner on the Administration of Palestine, 1920 through 1925. Palestine being, of course, the British Mandate, right? Mm-hmm. This is an excerpt from the Report of the High Commissioner on the Administration of Palestine, 1920 through 1925, and I quote, after the persecutions in Russia 40 years ago, the movement of the Jews to Palestine assumed larger proportions. Jewish agricultural colonies were founded. They developed the culture of oranges and gave importance to the Jaffa orange trade. They cultivated the vine and manufactured and exported wine. They drained swamps. They planted eucalyptus trees. They practiced with modern methods all the processes of agriculture. There are, at the present time, 64 of these settlements, large and small, with a population of some 15,000. Every traveler in Palestine who visits them is impressed by the contrast between these pleasant villages, with the beautiful stretches of prosperous cultivation about them, and the primitive conditions of life and work by which they are surrounded, meaning the Arabs. So in this report of the High Commissioner, there are three words that are used: colonies, settlements, and villages. And the writer, Eli Hertz, of Myths and Facts, concludes, settlements were and still remain the domain of the Jewish pioneer. Any attempt to negate the Jewish people's right to Palestine and to deny them access and control in the area designated for the Jewish people by the League of Nations is an actionable infringement of international law. But the point is, we ourselves don't seem to have this straight exactly. And so it goes, this spiral of the same self-doubt and the same lack of conviction of the righteousness of our own path that leads to the circus that was the trial of Elul Azaria is also responsible for our situation of the shackles and fetters and slavery of the world powers that basically are seeking all of these solutions. Whether, like you said, it's the final solution, the two-state solution, all these solutions, the only solution is the Torah solution, which is that this land belongs to the Jewish people. And that just seems to be the last thing that most people want to admit. And therefore, here we are. And again, I think that Yaakov saw all of this, and he's like, good luck with that. Good luck with that. I was going to tell you something, guys, about the final days, but you know what? What was that line from Pirates of the Caribbean? Where that captain, what was his name? He said...
Jack Sparrow?
No, the other one, Barbosa. Oh, you don't believe in ghost stories? You're in one. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho,
it goes back to what you had mentioned earlier in the show, which was the Beit HaMikdash is not just a building, and it's not being here is not just, we're not just missing, people think of it in terms of, it means sovereignty, If we have the Mikdash, it means we have sovereignty, then, nobody will mess with us. If we have the Mikdash, it means the renewal of the service. Those are very important things, but it means sovereignty in every level and renewal of the service of God in every level, every human level possible that there is. It means that we regain the sovereignty of our own selves.
Exactly.
We regain our own service of God, or we regain control over our own hearts and our souls. We don't, wander around aimlessly and.
So there are those that look at it as just it's a blue and white deal. It's like, oh, this is like the seat of sovereignty, which is basically a. What is the word I'm looking for? It's a minimalization. Mm-hmm. Of the idea. There are those that look at it as far as being something that relates only to rote and ritual. And that's completely not the idea here. The idea that I was trying to express regarding our feelings about the soldiers that were killed, it has to do with being in touch with who we are, with our ability to relate to ourselves and to each other, with our emotions, with being real, with knowing why we're here. And it's a total connection of purpose, and it's a total life force. This isn't something that's brought about by a building. No, we don't believe like that. Myopic is the word I was looking for. Myopic. Thank you. It came back to me. Myopic. To think about this only in terms of blue and white and sovereignty and all that. That's a myopic worldview, because it's much more holistic than that. But the point is, it doesn't come about, this spiritual revolution, because of a building. It comes about through the resting of the divine presence. As God commands us to build this building, it's because that means that we are ready to commit ourselves to making this world into a place of holiness and a place of purpose. That's what the temple is all about. It's a transformation and a transfiguration of life, and that's why we fast on the 10th day of Tevet. And by the way, that's why soldiers are killed, and that's why there is terror in this world, because we are not the people that we need to be, because we are not in touch, because we are slaves to so many things. We serve so many masters. Okay, so on January 20th, what is it? You're all excited? We're going to have a new master? He's our master? No. There's only one master, and that's our Father, our King, Hashem, the Creator. And let's get that through our heads and understand the nuances, the resonance, the broadcast of what Torah is teaching us, which is that we are here for a purpose. And that purpose is to declare, as Jacob's children declare to him, Hear, O Israel, Hashem is God, He is one.
Until the day that the Holy Temple is rebuilt, we are all under siege. Our ways of life, our way of life is under siege. Who we are is under siege. Our identities are under siege. Our children are under siege, and we spend so much time and make so much effort, fighting the siege and trying to get around the siege and trying to put a dent in the siege, while losing sight of how to really end the siege, which is to rise above it by rebuilding that which is missing in our lives and in the life of the world. And then, and only then, will we actually, I think, be aware of all that we've been missing up till then. But it's the one thing we can do is change our understanding, our perception, our mentality of what we need to do. And what we need to do is not fight our enemies so much, but to take upon ourselves the responsibility of repairing and rebuilding what God has commanded us to put into place from the very start.
And then our enemies would not be our enemies any longer. They would respect us for doing exactly what it is that we're supposed to be doing in this world, because that's what they're waiting for.
And then the world would start to make the transition over to a better world, a better place. That's the peace plan. The peace plan is what the Torah has always espoused, and that is the land of Israel for the nation of Israel, in which the Torah of Israel will be observed and will be spread and taught and made known throughout the entire world.
And from there will flow blessing and excellence to the entire world.
God willing, and may it happen, and may it begin now, and may we take it upon ourselves now to be part of this, and may we never have to bury our children ever again, God forbid. Thank you for being with us today. Temple Talk.